So we have everyone present and a very warm welcome to all participants. Good morning from Paris and good afternoon to all of you in Vietnam and Korea. We're very pleased to be starting the Capacity Building Program 2021, co-organized by the OECD Korea Policy Center and the OECD in partnership with the Vietnam National Academy of Public Administration. My name is Ethel Huyen Tan. I'm a junior policy analyst in the Digital Government and Data Unit in the OECD, and I'm very pleased to be a host for this capacity building program. The topic of this program is public governance of digital transformation, digital government policy, international experience and implications for digital governance in Vietnam. We're going to be having a series of presentations by the OECD, followed by Vietnam and international peers from Korea, Canada, and Colombia, who will be showcasing practical examples in their experience of developing and building digital government maturity. So without further ado, let us begin with the opening remarks. We're joined by Ms. Elsa Pelichowski, Director of the Directorate for Public Governance in the OECD, Dr. Hong Tak-chun, Executive Secretary of the OECD Korea Policy Center, and Dr. Nguyen Dang Quay, Vice President of the National Academy of Public Administration of Vietnam, who will be providing opening remarks. At the same time, we are also graced with the presence of Dr. Dang Xuan Huan, the President of NAPA. So I'm very pleased to give Ms. Elsa Pelichowski the floor.
Thank you very much, Ethel. Good afternoon, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you and welcome all to the 2021 edition of the Capacity Building Program, organized yearly by the OECD in Asia in partnership with, of course, the OECD Korea Policy Center, KPC. On behalf of the OECD, let me say that I'm extremely delighted to open this program organized this year together also with the Vietnam National Academy of Public Administration, NAPA. I would really like to thank Dr. Hong Tak-chun, Executive Secretary of the OECD Policy Korea Center, for, of course, joining us today and for KPC's continuous interest to collaborate with the OECD. The long-standing cooperation between KPC and the Public Governance Directorate of the OECD has really been instrumental to reinforce government's capacity across the world, and particularly in Asia Pacific since 2005. I would also like to thank Dr. Nguyen Dang Quay, Vice President of the National Academy of Public Administration, NAPA, for tapping on this opportunity to further build Vietnam's public sector digital maturity. Ladies and gentlemen, the world of opportunity opened by digital tools and data at both the individual and societal level has never been more apparent than over the last 18 months, of course, since the COVID-19 pandemic started and forced every organization to become virtual. Governments have, been front and center in the crisis, and they have been able to uphold this role thanks to digital means. So governments are really no exception, as they can really benefit from digital technologies and data to foster people-driven digital transformation of the public sector that is not only equipped to respond to the needs and expectations of citizens and business in the digital age, but is also more resilient in the face of unprecedented shocks or demands. The OECD Public Governance Directorate, through the Digital Government and Data Unit, is working to support governments in their digital transformation so that they can best develop services that citizens and businesses expect, but also manage the risks and shape the overall digital transformation of our economies. Through our network on open and innovative government in Southeast Asia and the Global E-Leaders initiative called GELI, the OECD, we think, is really well placed to foster peer-to-peer sharing and learning between OECD member states and partner countries. This holds particularly true in Asia Pacific region and especially Southeast Asia, as really enhanced cooperation with the region is a priority for the OECD. This was called for by the last OECD Ministerial Council meeting and successively also over the years by our members. This capacity building program for Vietnam that we're having today, which brings together peers from Korea, Canada, and Colombia, demonstrates really the great value of international cooperation and also of multilateralism to learn from each other and advance, public sector reform agendas in various countries. So the theme, public governance of digital transformation, really stresses that indeed, nothing could be more crucial than nailing down public governance as really the foundation for digital governance, digital government. Vietnam really has just embarked on this transformative journey towards becoming a digital government with a lot of tenacity, we would say, by setting really public governance as the core foundation needed to advance the digital transformation of its public sector. The recent approval of Vietnam's first e-government development strategy, 2021-2025, and its ambition to improve its position on global rankings such as the United Nations e-government development index also sets a really good starting point to really kick off policy decisions and deliver value to citizens and to businesses. Vietnam, as many other countries around the world and OECD member countries, will of course face a lot of challenges in this transformative journey. This is inevitable. Evidence from the 2019 OECD Digital Government Index and the 2021 G20 Compendium on the use of digital tools for public sector continuity showed that countries that were more advanced in their digital governance prior to the crisis, if you want, gain really substantial advantages in managing the COVID-19 crisis. So there is I would say, a premium in the management of COVID crisis for those countries that were more advanced in digital maturity. The top performing countries on the 2019 OECD Digital Government Index, Korea and the United Kingdom, demonstrated that they were able to efficiently and effectively leverage existing enablers such as common and open source digital tools, infrastructure and public-private partnerships to really easily build and scale up their responses. Digital government in the context we live in has really proven a fundamental tool to really secure the delivery of people-driven public services to citizens and businesses, and also to allow the continuity of government operations during the crisis. Succeeding in the new normal really requires also the competence to fully tap on the potential of digital transformation and data to really build a resilient, inclusive, equitable and sustainable public sector that can really support a stronger digital economy and society. And of course, to reach this goal, this requires strong political support, governance of digital government, digital talent and skills, and also a lot of commitment at all levels of government. Let me just say that the OECD really stands ready and we're really eager to support and collaborate with the government of Vietnam in its journey to pursue higher digital government maturity. And with that, I really wish all participants a successful, meaningful and really memorable workshop ahead. We thank you very much again to all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Elsa Piotrowski, for really highlighting the importance of this program. So now we have Dr. Hong Tak Chun, Executive Secretary of the OECD Korea Policy Center, to provide his opening remarks. Dr. Chun, please.
Good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2021 edition of the Capacity Building Program, jointly hosted by the OECD and the OECD Korea Policy Center in partnership with the National Academy of Public Administration of Vietnam. We are very grateful to the OECD and the NAPA for their tremendous support they have provided for this workshop, especially to Ms. Elsa Plichowski and Dr. Nguyen Danke, and to their great team members. I'd like to mention that we were very fortunate to have 3 expert speakers from Korea, Canada, and Colombia. My special gratitude should go to Canada and Colombia, who will join us late today for their participation, in spite of huge time difference. Next, I would like to extend my appreciation to all the participants from Vietnam. To all the officials joining us here today, I'd like to say thank you very much for taking your precious time to share your views and experience in the digital government. This event has great value thanks to your presence here. As Ms. Elsa Plichowski said, the Prime Minister of Vietnam has recently approved the e-government development strategy towards the digital government in the 2021-2025 period, with an orientation to 2030. Being among the top 30 countries in the world in terms of e-government and digital government, according to the UN e-government development index, I believe Vietnam has great potential to become a leading country in the digital government, and this strategy of the Vietnamese government will surely create a breakthrough in the development of e-government and digital government in line with the development trend of the world. As you know, there are a range of transition from e-government to digital government in many countries. The speakers in the program are placed to share their views on this issue and highlight the key themes, trends, and current practices in the digital government issues. Especially interesting will be to learn the priorities and development from each other. The wonderful thing about this capacity building program is the international perspective that both speakers and participants bring to these discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this event is public governance of digital transformation, digital government policy, international experience and implications for digital governance in Vietnam. As you might be well aware, the OECD has been working on digital government for more than a decade, accumulating broad experience and deep knowledge about the topic. Who can be better placed than the OECD to speak about lessons learned? In that, I think this occasion is a great opportunity for all of us to exchange and share our views on the digital government. I sincerely hope you will enjoy today's discussion and networking. Thank you for your participation.
Thanks a lot to you, Dr. Hong Taek Chun. Thank you for your very important remarks. Now, last but not least, we have Dr. Nguyen Dang Quay, Vice President of the National Academy of Public Administration, to share his opening remarks. Dr. Nguyen, please.
Không, đây có tiếng rồi. Bắt xin cảm ơn. Xin chào tất cả các quý vị. Xin kính thưa bà Elisa Polikovsky, Giám đốc Văn phòng Quản trị Nhà nước OECD. Kính thưa ông Hong Taek Chun, Giám đốc điều hành Trung tâm Chính sách OECD Hàn Quốc.
Of the OECD Korea Policy Center, Mr. Đặng Xuân Hoan, President of the NAPA of Vietnam, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, scientists. First of all, on behalf of the leadership of the National Academy of Public Administration, NAPA, I'd like to welcome the distinguished guests to the conference with the theme, Public Governance of Digital Transformation, Digital Government Policy, International Experience and Implications for Digital Governance in Vietnam, co-organized by the NAPA and the OECD Policy Center, Korea. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam's 10-year socio-economic development strategy 2021-2030 clearly states renovation of the national governance towards modernity, especially development management and social management, strengthening the development of science and technology, innovation and digital transformation to create breakthroughs in productivity, quality, efficiency, and competitiveness. To realize the breakthroughs, specifically to achieve the goals set out in the strategy for e-government development towards digital government in the 2021-2025 period with a vision to 2030, Vietnam needs to continue to learn and refer to international experiences. To help countries successfully implement digital transformation, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or OECD, has developed a digital government policy framework. This is a tool to facilitate governments to identify the fundamental elements in digital government development, to promote digital transformation and the development of digital government. The National Center with the function of training and fostering capacity, knowledge and skills in administration, leadership and management of cadres, civil servants and public employees. The NAPA plays an important role in training for leaders of state agencies at all levels to raise their awareness, be ready and determined to set examples in applying digital technology in their direction and administration so that cadres, civil servants and public employees will also raise their own awareness and proficiently use the technology in handling internal affairs and providing digital services to the people. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, scientists, the workshop is held in a context when we are entering the third decade of the 21st century, a digital era with many opportunities ushered, intertwined with challenges. In the context that countries are impacted of the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and resource depletion, promoting international cooperation and effective application of digital technology are among the important solutions contributing to creating new impetuses for economic growth and recovery, thereby ensuring sustainable, inclusive, and comprehensive development. Promoting cooperation in the field of digitization is also a factor contributing to building an environment of peace, stability, cooperation, and development among nations and peoples around the world. This workshop aims to create an opportunity to exchange international experiences in digital governance and developing digital government, studying the practice of digital transformation and digital governance in Vietnam, thereby proposing solutions to improve digital governance capacity in the country. During the workshop, created is also a forum for officials, lecturers, and researchers of the NAPA in particular, and the Ministry of Home Affairs in general to participate in international scientific activities, contributing to the enhancement of their capacities in scientific research and working in an international environment. During the preparation process, the workshop attracted the attention of many experts, scientists, managers, and lecturers with more than 90 papers and presentations written with diverse and rich scientific viewpoints and perspectives, which have been gathered and edited into the workshop proceedings. We hope that the workshop will be a forum for scientists and managers of Vietnam and delegates and experts from the OECD, Korea, Canada, and Colombia to share their views and new perspectives and approaches, as well as to focus on discussing the following points. First, the digital government policy framework, the principles to develop digital government by the OECD, and their applicability in Vietnam. Secondly, the international experiences in policy making and implementation regarding digital governance, the possibility to apply international experiences in Vietnam. Thirdly, the practical situation in Vietnam, the achieved results, opportunities, challenges, and the possibility of applying international experiences in digital governance development in the country to meet the requirements of renovation, socio-economic development, and international integration. Fourth, the possibility of cooperation between the academy and agencies under OECD of Korea, Canada, Colombia in research, teaching, consulting, especially in the creation of training and further training programs in digital governance at the academy. Last but not least, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to you all for your participation and presenting at the workshop. My special thanks go to the Directorate for Public Governance of OECD in Paris, the Korea OECD Policy Center, and other international partners who have made active contribution to the development of high-quality administrative human resources in coordination with our academy, thus promoting Vietnam's processes of integration as well as renovation and transformation, contributing to strengthening the friendship between Vietnam and the countries of Korea, Canada, and Colombia for the common prosperity and peace of us all. We would like to thank you all, the delegates, the distinguished guests, for your participation. We wish you a successful workshop. Thank you.
Dr. Nguyen, thank you very much for laying out the crucial foundations and frameworks for this workshop. Now, to wrap up the opening ceremony, NAPA would like to take a photo of all the VIPs and the participants. So may I invite you to switch on your cameras and give a big smile for NAPA to take the picture. Thank you. May I ask if we're done, NAPA? Okay, so I believe that the picture has been taken. I would also like to give my special thanks to Dr. Dang Xuan Huan, the president of NAPA, for joining us. So without further ado, I am very delighted to kick off the program, starting with the first session hosted by OECD. We're going to be talking about the OECD Digital Government Policy Framework and speaking about our different work streams of digital government and data. And before we start, we would like to share a video of this framework that has been produced under last year's capacity building program with the OECD Korea Policy Center.
Sorry, no video. The video has stopped.
OECD works with governments to advance the digital transformation of the public sector and reinforce their competence to design and deliver better policies and services in a global and digital world. The OECD Digital Government Policy Framework helps governments in building digitally enabled states. The framework builds on the OECD recommendation of the Council on Digital Government Strategies, which sets out OECD principles to support countries in using digital technologies and data to improve public governance outcomes. The OECD Digital Government Policy Framework is structured around 6 dimensions which highlight the core aspects of a digitally mature public sector. The first dimension is digital by design, which implies having a digital approach to the design of internal operations and public services while securing an omni-channel approach for delivery. Data-driven public sector means using data as a strategic asset in policy making and service design and delivery, supported by the right data governance frameworks to enable trustworthy data access, sharing, and use. The third dimension is government as a platform, which is developing a scalable ecosystem of tools and resources to meet user needs in public service design and delivery. Open by default means making resources such as government data and source code available to the public as means to spur participation as well as economic and social innovation. User-driven is giving a central role to people's needs inclusively in the shaping of policies and services. The sixth and last dimension is proactiveness, which is anticipating the delivery of data and services to users prior to their request, which implies adapting delivery to the changing context and being able to anticipate needs. The OECD Digital Government Policy Framework is intended as a cornerstone for governments to be forward-looking and cutting-edge in their digital government approaches. It underlines the role of digital government in improving wider economic and social well-being. For instance, as an enabler of digital innovation and economy, improved service design and delivery, a more competent public sector, digital inclusiveness, and the green transition of the economy for a sustainable future. The use of technology and data by governments that supports the public interest. Its key purpose is to enable digitally enabled governments that deliver benefits for citizens as means to increase social well-being and public trust. The OECD Digital Government and Data Unit helps countries take advantage of the opportunities offered by digital technologies and data to improve public governance outcomes.
On behalf of the OECD, we would also like to give our special thanks to the OECD Korea Policy Center for collaborating on the production of this video. The capacity building program of 2021 also includes the production of 6 videos that focuses on each of the 6 dimensions of the OECD Digital Government Policy Framework. And this capacity building program with Vietnam marks the launch of these 6 videos, which we will share after this event, the links to the 6 videos for you to watch at your own time. And without further ado, let's begin with the OECD's presentation. I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. Barbara Ubaldi, Head of the Digital Government and Data Unit, and Acting Head of the Open and Innovative Government in the Directorate for Public Governance in the OECD, along with Mr. Jacob Arturo Rivera Perez, Policy Analyst and Data-Driven Public Sector Lead of the Digital Government and Data Unit of the OECD. Both of them will be presenting, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ethel, and good morning, everybody. I suppose you can confirm the presentation well. Perfect. Good morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today and to share with you a little bit of the knowledge and wisdom we've been collecting in the past 2 decades working on digital government a very long journey that brought us to identify some of the key fundamentals that we think need to be in place to be able to grow governments that are more digitally mature and as such capable to deliver services that better respond to the needs of our economies and societies. I think we can all agree with the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated in a very, let's say, undoubtful way that societies and economies had to go digital overnight, and governments had to be capable to demonstrate that they were up to the expectations of the users of services to be able to interact with governments online. So being digital became a reality that was a necessity and not an option for all governments around the world, because citizens and economies had to go digital overnight. This is not an easy task for governments around the world. There's no single government that we work with that still does not feel that there are many challenges that need to be overcome to be able to be fully digital in a meaningful way. Many complex challenges are being dealt with around the world that connect with the fact that the overarching context from an economic, social, and environmental perspective is very challenging and complex. There are crises of different kinds that emerge almost on a daily basis that impose on governments the capacity to be very agile and responsive on how they understand the needs of the societies and economies. In coming up with solutions, there are budget constraints that oftentimes are not easy to handle. The feeling is that investing in new opportunities requires reshifting the priorities when it comes to spending on digital. It's also very important to show that governments are capable to identify what's better to spend, but they're also capable to show in a transparent way how they are spending money on digital. Many recovery funds are being at the moment provided to governments to support their capacities to use digital, to keep continuing operating and delivering services, even in moments of uncertain circumstances. And this is a context in which more than ever, societies expect governments to be able to show accountability on how money is being spent. This requires also the need to prove capable to deliver results, which means making sure the public sectors are equipped with the right talent and skills, which is needed to use technology to respond to the needs of societies in ways that are also fair and equitable. This is at the core, let's say, of the shift that the OECD has been encouraging since 2014 from an e-government approach to a digital government approach, going from a context in which often governments were using technology to transfer online processes that existed in an analog world to a context in which data and digital technologies are leveraged to change how processes are run and how services are designed and delivered to be able to better respond to the needs of economies and societies. This is not an easy task for government, we know, which is why the OECD in 2014 fostered the development of the recommendation of the Council on Digital Government Strategies that was adopted by the Council in 2014, precisely with the idea to provide a normative instrument for governments to guide the evolution from an e-government approach to a digital government approach. The framework that was presented in the video that was just shown is the result of the application of this recommendation in over 20 bilateral projects we implemented in countries around the world, complemented by some regional studies, which had as a goal the identification of the key areas that we consider being fundamental aspects or dimensions of a digital government, which we believe efforts from governments should be focusing when we try to increase the maturity of digital government. The Digital Government Index, which is the measurement tool that was developed by the organization to complement the set of tools made available to governments to enact this shift towards digital government, shows that there are still many progresses that need to be made by governments around the world, even the top ranking countries. And the idea is really to understand that it's not about where a country stands in the ranking, but what is the main action in every different of the 6 dimensions that the government can take to be able to advance comprehensively towards a more digital government maturity. This has been really a way for the OECD to be objective in providing tools that support all governments around the world, member and non-member countries, towards a higher digital government maturity that delivers results. We don't like using the term accelerating digital government maturity without looking at the outcome of what this digital maturity can bring. And this has been a way to provide these tools, as I said, for member countries, but also non-member countries that we work very much with as part of our Global E-Leaders Initiative, which frames all the different initiatives, including the one that we are having today, to make sure that the knowledge and experiences that is built within the OECD family can be shared with countries around the world and can benefit governments around the world. So what are, in our view, the tools that we make available for governments to be able to advance in this digital government maturity that somehow cover the fundamental elements that need to be in place to grow a digital government maturity? We look at the governance for digital government. We look at the capacity of governments to embrace an approach towards service design and delivery that connects the two elements. Often we see governments focusing on wanting to improve the delivery of services without understanding the kind of advancements that need to be implemented in the design and how the services are being designed. We look at the data as a core key strategic asset for governments, therefore help governments moving towards more data-driven approaches. We look at the skills and talent needed for governments to be more digitally mature, and we look at the challenges that still exist in improving the management of the financial resources towards digital government. So when it comes to the governance of digital government, recognizing the essential importance of having the right governance for digital government in a country to be able to secure strategic objectives, alignment of actions, alignment of decisions across the public sector, sense of collective ownership and accountability, because we know that digital government cannot be a reality promoted only by one institution, but we need to have all different stakeholders within the public sector to work together in their specific area, in line with the joint objectives of a government for the digital maturity to grow. The handbook on governance for digital government produced by the OECD has the purpose of helping governments understand what is the most suitable governance model that makes sense in a specific country. We look around good examples across OECD member countries, but we acknowledge that the contextual factors in a specific country are extremely important to identify what is the institutional model that makes more sense, what kind of organizational structure can be set in place to make sure that it's clear who takes the decisions, has the right mandate, has the right resources, but also is supported by the right institutional mechanism to connect with the rest of the administration. And we look at the specific policy levers that can help the authority responsible for guiding the development and implementation of a digital government strategy and agenda to bring all the different parts around the table and ensure a cohesive and coherent digital government maturity across the administration. We look at the strategy being in place, we look at the tools available for making sure that all the public sector is capable to run projects in an agile way. We look at the tools available to improve the financial management of the digital government resources. And we look at the standards, for instance, and regulations in place to make sure that it's clear the type of actions that is needed across the whole administration. We have been conducting measurement work also in Southeast Asia as part of our flagship publication called Government at a Glance, Southeast Asia, that was released in 2019. And what is very interesting to see is that when we look at Southeast Asian countries, we do see that all governments, digital government strategies, which is extremely relevant if we acknowledge the fact that governments have recognized the importance of setting common goals and guiding actions towards the achievement of those common goals. And we see that most Southeast Asian countries, including Vietnam, has digital government strategies that cover other policy areas. For example, health, education, justice, the digital economy, culture, and social protection. Now, what is very important is to make sure all these strategies are very much connected with each other, and that there's a clearly identified digital government strategy that keeps supporting advancements towards more digital government maturity. When we look at the user and the services angle, the framework that we have produced, working since, I would say, over the past 4 or 5 years, focusing more on the service angle, it's a framework that acknowledges, again, the fact that improving service design and delivery needs to be understood as a challenge that is implemented within a specific context. For example, there are countries that are more centralized on how they provide services, countries that have a more decentralized system of service delivery, where local governments play a key role. That cannot be taken as a secondary element, together with the fact that some countries have a geography that makes it very difficult to provide the same quality of services around the country. Second, we need to consider what we call philosophy of design and delivery, meaning what is the understanding of the whole problem from the top leadership, what are the different approaches that exist within an administration to improve service design and delivery. This to understand that when we think about improving the delivery of services, we need to understand what is the vision around the improvement of services within a specific administration. Is there a strategy that focuses in particular on improving public services? The type of enablers that are in place, for example, common standards for designing and delivering services, best practices and guidelines that can be used across the administration so that the quality of services across the whole administration is ensured, the type of talent that is brought around the table, for instance, having multidisciplinary teams that bring together data scientists with AI experts, psychologists, people who are capable to see how to bring on board the users of the services. All these elements need to be taken into account, but the key message is that to improve the delivery, we need to remember that the end-to-end approach to the design of a service and the delivery of the service need to be seen as a priority. We cannot improve the final outcome if we don't change how the service is being designed. If we don't recognize that it's extremely important to overcome silo-based approaches in how we improve service design and delivery, and if we don't remember that shifting towards more user-driven approaches where the needs of the users are put at the center of the work that the teams designing services conduct is essential. This needs to be very much connected to the whole conversation around how do we procure all the bits and pieces we need to be able to improve the delivery of the service, and how do we also test and experiment in the implementation of the service so that in a way all the providers from outside of the public sector with whom we have to work to deliver a better service become partners. This is extremely important. Why? Because I think, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic context, governments have been experiencing a public trust crisis, meaning the public has not always been trustworthy towards the capacity of governments to respond to their needs which have been changing overnight, as I said at the beginning, in most of the cases. Well, then improving the delivery of services and making the most of the opportunities provided by digital government to improve the final services is essential to increase the level of citizen satisfaction with the responses provided by the government, which can have a very strong impact on public trust and therefore on the overall legitimacy of governments. What we see in Southeast Asia is that countries are advancing, establishing platforms for delivering of services at the national level. And also there have been important efforts to increase the availability of tools like digital identification mechanisms integrated as part of the national portal to improve public services. So the point is that this is an area that will require further attention and efforts in Southeast Asia, not only across all countries. The OECD has been working lately a lot on digital identity seen as a tool to improve access and delivery of public services. Most likely, the Southeast Asian countries, 7 of the 10 which were part of our study have a digital identification mechanism, will have to keep focusing on the availability and the usability of digital identification mechanisms to improve the management of identity as a service. So this to say that the overall conversation on services design and delivery is extremely important, especially if we link digital government as a lever to stronger democracy. And I now would like to leave the floor to my colleague Arturo to guide you through the tools we have available to improve data-driven public sector approaches. Arturo, the floor is yours. Please let me know when I can change the slide.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning, good afternoon to all the KPC and the NAPA members who are attending the conference. I think Barbara's last slide was perfect just to introduce this topic, because precisely one of the key areas of work that in which we really try to provide support to countries in different regions across the world is services. And as part of the development of services, we always stress how important is data. I am not only speaking, of course, about internal services, which are important for the public sector, but of course that we connect this to the overall discussion of the design and the delivery of public services to citizens and to businesses in every country. Barbara, if you can kindly help me to change to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as you saw in the video and also as part of Barbara's previous presentation, data-driven public sector is one of the 6 dimensions of our digital government policy framework. And from this perspective, it is foundational to the digital transformation of the public sector. The way that we approach data-driven public sector across OECD countries and also partners has 3 specific areas. The first one is data governance, which is the foundations which should be in place to actually enable the application of data for the anticipation and planning of the needs of citizens and services and businesses, the delivery of those services, and of course, the evaluation and the monitoring of public policies and services as well. The third element, which is also really important, to really take a trustworthy approach to data access and sharing within the public sector, is trust. And in terms of trust, we address this from 4 different perspectives. The first one being ethics, the second one privacy, and then you have, of course, transparency and security. The last item, trust, has gained further relevance in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically given the need that governments had to collect data from citizens so that continuity could be assured from the perspective of public services. If you could help me, Barbara, with the next slide, please. Now, in going really quickly to what we mean about the foundations of a data-driven public sector, this is data governance. What you're seeing in your screen is the model that we developed for data governance in the public sector. Whereas, we apply this to what we call public sector data, this model that you see in your screen is scalable. So the different elements that you see can be applied not only, for instance, to data access and sharing practices within the public sector, but also across different sectors. And this is really important. At the same time, of course, as you know, there are specific synergies between data governance and AI governance. Okay, I am stressing this because it's always important not to disconnect all the different policies which countries are working on nowadays. The first strategic and really important layer relates to the leadership. The need to have a strong support at the highest level in government, if possible, precisely to push, for a change on how data is being managed, accessed, shared, and used within the public sector and by public officials. The second layer, which we call this tactical layer, relates to the rules that should be in place to actually streamline and facilitate the access and the sharing of the data, also the capacities which should be built to enhance the coherent implementation of digital and data projects in the public sector, and so on. And then we have what we call the delivery layer, okay? Everything related to the technical aspects of data. The data value cycle, we have the data infrastructure, and we have the data architecture. I cannot go into detail in all of the different layers, but with this, you have an overall overview of what we mean about data governance in the public sector. Now, why is this important? Because after working several years with different countries, not only within the OECD membership, but also outside the OECD members, we realized that normally the way the data governance was approached was different. Okay, for some countries, data governance was more a matter which was technical. For some other countries, data governance was maybe something which was more related to data protection or privacy. Therefore, they took or followed, you know, the regulation approach and so on and so on. So for us, for the OECD, it's important to stress from now on, from the very beginning, the data governance is multi-level. Okay, there are different responsibilities, actions, and so on, which should be taken by different public officials at different levels. Okay, and this is really important to keep in mind if there is a goal to actually develop a comprehensive approach to data within the public sector. Barbara, please, with the next slide. Thank you. Then, of course, something that is important to highlight is the connection of data governance in the data-driven public sector to open data. What you see in the screen is the OECD Open, Useful, and Reusable Data Index. This is our policy instrument to that we use to benchmark open data policies across OECD member and partner countries. It is organized across 3 different pillars: data availability, the accessibility of the data, and really important, the support that governments provide to actually explore or increase the reuse of the data which they are sharing publicly with specific actors. Okay, why I am stressing the 3rd pillar of our data index? I am stressing this because it's really important, precisely, you know, to make sure that there is a purpose-driven approach to the openness of government data. This is not only about making public sector data available out there so that then nobody's using it. It's about really creating value for the data. Next slide, please. Something also that is really important is that whereas, you know, the original version of our data index focuses on OECD countries, we have also applied our measurement instrument to data in different regions, including Southeast Asia. What you see in your screen is precisely the results for the 2018 edition of our data index in Southeast Asia. Okay, this is based on data that we collected from you know, from public officials in Vietnam. And as you can see, Vietnam still faces, or at least back at the time, faced some key challenges to actually improve, you know, their open data policies in the country. As I said before, this is based on data from a couple of years ago, so I am sure that there have been some developments in the country, and I would like to invite, you know, the Vietnamese government to join us, you know, to measure again the advancements and the potential challenges that you are still facing in the country in relation to open government data, so that we can work together to help you in advancing these open data policies. The next slide, please. Then, as I was mentioning before, and just before closing, we have the element related to public trust, which is structured around 4 different elements. The next slide, please. But in this case, I would like to make reference specifically to the good practice principles for data ethics in the public sector. Why I am stressing this, and next slide, please. Because what we have seen recently in when working with governments is that this is an emerging area. Okay, there is still a lot of a lack of clarity in terms of what data ethics is in the context of the public sector. Data ethics is not about privacy only. It's not only about data protection, okay? It complements precisely, you know, data protection and privacy regulations. Something that is also really important in terms of what data ethics is in the public sector is that normally these type of instruments are not binding, meaning that the adherence to a specific data ethical framework does not imply that in practice, you know, there will be an action-oriented approach to it. Then at the same time, we need to make sure that data ethics connect to broader policies in the public sector, specifically, and this is really important, to integrity policies in the public sector. Ethics is part of the broader environment, and as such, ethics should be addressed from the perspective of ethics in the digital era. And then the last slide, please. And our good practice principles for data ethics in the public sector are organized across 10 different principles. It is difficult to go and to present because of the time, all of them, but we will be happy to further actually share with you further conversations and collaborations, you know, more information about the good practice principles for data ethics in the public sector, and also really important to stress why data ethics matter in the public sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Arturo. So now guiding you through the last two areas that we consider fundamentals for growing digital government maturity. The first one of the last two being digital talent and skills. We do think that talking about skills cannot be just seen as connected to the type of capacities that we want to see emerging across or being available across civil servants, but we really need to think about the topic of skills and talent as a comprehensive topic that looks at the type of environment we want to create that will enable us to attract the right skills and to retain the right skills. Oftentimes, we think that people do not want to, with the right skills, they don't want to join the public sector because of a salary-related matter. What we see is not that salary is the only or main reason that convinces people to come to the public sector or remain in the public sector, is that oftentimes people who have the skills and profiles which are needed to advance the digital transformation, I'm thinking about data scientists, I'm thinking about innovators, I'm thinking about AI specialists, I'm thinking about people who work with behavioral insights to experiment and change how things are being done. Not think that the public sector as the environment that would encourage them to put at the service of the final results their capacities. And certainly it's an environment that does not have the profiles, the job profiles, that make sure that the people with the right skills coming to the public sector have a motivation to remain and have a space for them to remain. So oftentimes these are skills that are brought on board by recruiting consultants. So there's no real intention in many countries to create job profiles that would make it possible for these people to have their own place and to remain in a long-term sustainable way inside of the public sector workforce to be part of the transformation that we want to foster. So in this sense, for us, looking at the type of talented public sector that we need to foster and to have in place to support the digital transformation is also a matter of looking at the type of learning culture that we want to create within the public sector so that people can experiment, can test, can be agile in how they work using data and using technologies. And also we need to make sure that the ways of working are more flexible. Oftentimes the bureaucracy is what makes it impossible for people to be more agile in how they work and for people to be able to experiment. We then need to look at skills as a comprehensive set of skills. Often when we talk about the talented public sector for a digital transformation, we look at the technical skills. Do people know how to use technology? Do people know how to use AI? Well, it's not only about the hard skills, but it's also about the soft skills that we want to bring on board if we really want to change how, for example, services are designed and delivered. We talk so much about putting the users at the core of the design process. Well, we need to have people in the multidisciplinary teams who have the social and emotional skills who make it easier for them and possible for them to connect and engage with the users of the public services. So in this sense, what we are trying to say is that when we think about the talented public sector, we need to think about the set of skills that we want to bring around the table in teams that need to be multidisciplinary teams. Many governments are testing how to improve the use of AI, for example, to better design policies and to better design services. Well, you really need to have around the table also data people who can help identify comprehensive data sets in ways that are ethical, like Arturo was saying, the choice of the data for informing algorithms can have an impact on the final decision. So it's an ethical issue, but it's also an issue of being data competent. But you also need to have psychologists and anthropologists and sociologists to be able to connect the use of technology with the results and with the final needs we are trying to solve. And as I said, it's extremely important to think about maintaining a digital workforce, not only developing a digital workforce, which means that we really need to connect the work of the digital teams with the work of the HR teams to have a strategy for HR development that is connected with the strategy of the digital transformation. The last area that we consider a foundational area for growing digital government maturity is around building capacities and providing tools to improve how the resources for digital government are managed. Too often what we see is that governments do not connect the dots between the planning of the investments and therefore the capacity to be able to make a value proposition, meaning to have a tool like business case tools that make it sure that different parts of the administration can explain why they want to invest on a digital government initiative or project. They then plan how they want to invest on the digital government project and they spend this money, but also how this work is connected with the overarching budgetary processes that in many cases do not support agile investment on digital. Oftentimes, we do know that budgetary processes allocate money for digital to individual ministries during the yearly budgetary negotiations. Now, there are two big limitations. In many cases, these allocations do not help the investment on horizontal projects, digital projects across the administration. And if we talk about digital government as something that needs to build on horizontality, integration, sharing, well, we need to have budgetary mechanisms that enable more flexible investments on digital government. And second, by allocating money to individual ministries without looking at the overarching priorities of a digital government strategy, in many cases, we incentivize silo spending, investments on systems that do not talk to each other, that they are not complementary, are not linked to the final goals, but also that in many cases duplicate among each other. So it's extremely important to connect the whole conversation around being able to identify the cost and benefits of an investment with the budgetary overarching framework, with the efficient allocation of these resources, or thinking about procurement processes that need to be more agile to support a digital transformation. And last but not least, the monitoring and evaluation of the impact of this project, and also the monitoring and evaluation on the timeliness and on the efficiency and on the benefits of the projects being implemented is essential. We, I think, all know that governments have been under strong criticism on how efficient they are in spending on digital, how effective are the digital government projects and initiatives. Well, what's more important is not necessarily to guarantee a 100% success rate, but is being capable as a government to show that we are on top of the process and that we can identify if and when things don't go in the expectations, to be able to say we can take corrective measure. So the measurement that we did in Southeast Asia demonstrates that there are policy levers that can be even better used to improve how the financial management is made more efficient. The digital government survey that was run in 2018 as part of the exercise that I mentioned earlier shows that there are standardized models for business cases for ICT projects across the administration, but there are some countries that still do not have those tools. These are data from 2018. We'd be very happy to hear today if Vietnam has in the meanwhile adopted such a tool, but that's a key point, because if you provide common ways to provide value proposition and explain why they want to invest on digital, it's a very strong, powerful tool to increase a cohesive digital maturity across the administration. Same when it comes to project management, it's very important to provide tools that increase the capacity of all administrations to manage projects in a very agile way. This is very important to also decrease the level of reliability that many governments have on the private sector. We see still across many governments, even mature digital governments, that the capacities inside and the availability of common tools to manage projects in a more agile way is not always a reality, which means that the public sector has to rely on capacities and competence coming from the private sector. So a couple of examples that are mechanisms tested at the moment to improve the financial management and digital government include pre-approved funds for digital transformation. So these are funds that enable basically all the projects. They require testing, they require experimentation, they require trial and error. For example, in Australia, the Digital Start Fund and the Local Digital Fund in the UK. Again, these are ways to experiment and make spending on digital government more agile in line with the digital transformation needs. And a second mechanism is the project portfolio management, which basically is a centralized management approach that allows government to push forward a number of projects, safeguarding the coherence of the projects and investments, and also maximizing the overall value for money. The idea really is to have projects that meet minimum quality criteria that are aligned with the overarching objectives to ensure an efficient use of the resources. We conclude with a presentation here that had as a goal to provide you an overview of the different tools that we make available for governments to be able to overcome common challenges towards more digital government maturity. And we hope that this will contribute to the second part of the discussion. Thank you, Ethel. The floor.
Thank you very much, Barbara and Arturo. Now, participants and speakers will break for 5 minutes before we reconvene to dive into the case of Vietnam and international experiences. So please be back here by 3:14 Vietnam time and 5:14 Korea time. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the second part of the capacity building program. I hope that the OECD session has provided an overview of the digital government policy framework and the various important foundations for digital government maturity to consider in the digital government development. And now we will be transitioning over to session 2, where we will dive into the case of Vietnam. We have 2 speakers who will be joining us today. Dr. Lu Kiem Than, former NAPA Vice President, who will be talking about the application of the digital government policy framework in the context of Vietnam. And then we have Dr. Hong Hu Han from the Center for International Education, Posts and Telecommunications Institute of Technology, and the Ministry of Information and Communication, who will be talking about the enablers for digital government development in Vietnam. We are looking forward to the presentations. So without further ado, let me pass the floor over to Dr. Lu Kiem Than, please. I'll be sharing your presentation.
Xin được kính chào tất cả các
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairperson and participants in our workshop today. Before starting my presentation, I would like to express our sincere thanks to the organizers for facilitating me with an opportunity and an honor to share my little knowledge of digital transformation. And after listening to the previous speakers, and also we have studied the presentations provided by you. I deem them quite interesting, and on that basis, we have prepared some kind of presentation to share with you on how our country Vietnam can apply the OECD DGPF, the applicability into Vietnam's real situation. So we can say that the 6 dimensions we have mentioned have also provided us a kind of framework to provide a kind of a systematic assessment. Of course, the assessment can be made from various perspectives, you see, by various institutions. But within today's workshop, I would like to provide you with some kind of assessment of, for example, Vietnam's result achieved in terms of development of the digital government. And also in the long term, more and more opportunities are ushered, are opened for Vietnam to conduct further research and considerations so that we can apply to achieve the important targets that by 2025 and also 2030 in terms of the milestones for the process of digital government to become a digital nation. So on the application of the digital government, we see that it has been a kind of things that we need to do in the process of development in our country, Vietnam, to facilitate, to promote digital government. In April 2015, the Ministry of Information and Communication has the decision number 178 promulgating on the version 1.0 of Vietnamese kind of e-government. It was mostly at that time for the MIC itself, Ministry of Information and Communication. And at that time, we see there was such a kind of framework to facilitate the work between the government agencies and the people. And from some perspective, that version 1.0 have Vietnam to make strides in the development of e-government to head towards digital government. In line with the index by the United Nations in terms of the online public service or the indices on human resource. For example, in the period from 2014, 2016, Vietnam has made progress, ranking from 99th to 89th. Yeah, um, elevated by 10 ranks, you see, creating some kind of impetus or confidence for Vietnam to further its completion of e-government so that it can develop also digital government. And also for that purpose, in decision number 2323 by the MIC, Ministry of Information and Communication, we prepared the e-government architecture of version 2.0 to instruct, to guide ministries, government agencies, and provincial level cities and provinces to develop their own e-government architects to develop and implement in a synchronous manner the system of e-government in all the levels, both central and local levels. And on that basis, we also started, Vietnam started the work in relation to the key data foundation. There was a milestone with the resolution by the government number 17 in late 2019. And based on that, in 2020, it was the year for Vietnam to end the 2015 and 2020 period to start a new period of 2021-2025. And in the period, we see that Vietnam has reaped initial results. The national platform were developed in a synchronous manner in all of the e-government architectures, from the layers of transmission of data, the sharing of data, and then integration, application, and service. For the development of e-government, we see that there have been the foundations, and we also see that this is an inevitable tendency in the world. And Vietnam has created and applied the specialized data transmission network of the state agencies, and there was also the platforms to share the data and to be linked to the national data gateway. In terms of the specialized data transmission network of the party and state agencies in 2019, all of the ministries, agencies, provinces, and centrally run cities have been connected at the district and communal levels, 93.4%. And 1 year later, in 2022, that specialized data transmission network was connected to all of the ministries, agencies, provinces, and cities, and 98% of the district and communal levels. Yeah, the remaining are mostly those in the very remote areas. So we have seen the encouraging results of Vietnam in the context that the country has been facing lots of difficulties, including the COVID pandemic. A number of the key databases for e-governments Vietnam were developed. For example, the database on health insurance of the 24 million of the households, or the database for the civil status, for example, things like birth certificate, birth registration, or the national databases for real-time business registration, or the databases including the information for tax management, or the databases for education, which is now, you see, in the process of strong development. Vietnam is in the process of fighting the pandemic, so the schools are closed. There has been recently the positive signals. However, the children are not yet allowed to come back to school. So they are studying virtually with the online manner. So the databases have been helpful in facilitate the education of the country. Or we can also name the common databases at the Ministry of Health. Now we can also say about the kind of the people demographic data, or the land database. They have been also working on. In terms of the platforms for integration and sharing of data. They plays a very important role in the sharing of data among the state agencies. By the end of 2020, the system has been formulated at the national level in line with the Vietnam e-government architecture, including the platform, the databases of the ministry linked with each other via a national platform of data integration and sharing. And that platform has been sharing and integrating with more than 200 databases of the ministries and agencies. Yeah, and millions of official transactions were conducted. Yeah, 8 million in the 2 years 2019-2020. Now the sharing of the data between ministries and provinces in 2018 there was only 3 ministries and provinces and city, or 3.2%. But in 2019, yeah, it was much higher, 27.17%. 4 ministries, government agencies, and 21 provinces and cities. And in 2020, all of the ministries and government agencies and provinces and central cities have such a system connected with the national data sharing and integrated platforms. So in the year 2020, 100% of the ministries and agencies have been linked to the national platform of data integration and sharing. It was a breakthrough, you see. So in the previous speeches by the Oecd speakers, you also say that Vietnam has lots of potential. And given the speed of development, we are confident that we will be able to realize the instructions from the party, the central government in the development of a digital society, to turn from e-government into a digital government and to develop a digital society. The national data gateway or platform has been created, and it is related to the dimension you have mentioned, right? Government as a platform. When we speak about e-government, we speak about the G2G relations, and the role of the government is very important, orientating the digital transformation. And also in Vietnam's political system, the Communist Party of Vietnam, the ruling party, pays great attention to that, and state also pay great attention to that, issuing timely documents and regulations. And on the 27th of September 2019, the Politburo of the party issued resolution number 52, and in April 2020, the government issued resolution number 50 on the implementation of that resolution number 52, and also upcoming with the important decisions like the one in June 2020 approving the program for national digital transformation, and in June 2021 decision number 942 approving the strategy for e-government development towards digital government, and the most recent one 1 month later, on the 15th of July, less than 3 months ago, the government approved the master program on public administrative reforms for the upcoming 10 years. And in the resolution, the administrative reforms saw new things in addition to the institutional reforms, structural reforms for the apparatus of the human resources and public finance. In the past, we use the word modernization. Now we have the terminology like reforming of the public service, and it is closely linked to a digital transformation for the fundamental and comprehensive improvement and reforms of the public service. And digital transformation has been considered an important part of public administrative reform, PAR. a necessity, a needed step to realize our targets, not to be lagging behind other countries. Because if you fail to do that, surely we will be left behind, because nobody would, no other countries would stand still to wait for us, for Vietnam, to catch up with them. So we are also thankful to the previous speakers of the presentation. Yeah, you provided some perspectives. Maybe we have heard about some of that earlier, but the overview is very important and useful to us. Now, let's think about things like openness or transparency. Yeah, the provision of data and the participation of the public in the policy making process, thus creating the kind of public values. Transparency, efficiency in the access. Yeah, they can access from anywhere, and also the kind of open options, creating trust, confidence, and also the issue of the quality of data to create the so-called public values in the e-government, which will bring about the core values of the digital government. So that we have been focusing to affirm the core public values of what we call an action-oriented serving and government. So in terms of openness and transparency, by last November, nearly 40 platforms have been introduced. Those on online teaching and learning, all the platforms for businesses by major economic corporations like Viettel, or the system of the online data exchange and document exchange. So the documents have been exchanged among the agencies in an electronic digitized manner. And also the national gateway or platform for national data has been also performing. The application of the application of the latest technologies to boost the openness and transparency with, for example, the reporting system of the ministries, and also the so-called e-cabinet, one kind of electronic office to have the companies, the state agencies to meet each other virtually, reducing the transportation cost and all saving the time as well. And also we will have been using the kind of electronic information system, and we also have the target of orientating the users, the consumers. We have the targets of making the people more and more satisfied, happy. It is some kind of the people-centered approach, and to take the people's convenience and satisfaction as the purposes, as the targets. And in terms of the orientation of the users, you have seen that the increasing number of level of public service public services. They have been elevated in terms of the efficiency. And since we have the kind of the so-called national public service gateway, well, we have seen that it has have a good landmark. For example, it has provided nearly 6,800 administrative procedures in all of the levels. 468,000 accounts have been registered, and such system have also integrated with lots of public services. By the 8th of March 2021, 2,800 public services have been integrated with 116 million turns of visits and receive lots of calls and attractions. Yeah, you can see with the specific figures on the slide and in the handout, which have been vividly demonstrating the process of transitioning from e-government into digital government in Vietnam. And Vietnam has also been with proactiveness. Last December, the ministry have implemented the 4-layer security system, and also the National Cyber Security Center of the MIC reported more than 5,100 cyber attacks, but it is much lower. It is lower by 0.15% compared with 2019. And in the November of 2019, the MIC also launched a system for information sharing and security for e-government. So heading towards the prosperous and safe development, applying the advanced technology, fundamentally renovating, changing the working methods of the government, as well as the lifestyle and the working style of businesses and the people, and especially for the widespread and safe development. We attach importance also to the issues of cybersecurity. So given what I've said, we can see that Vietnam has made an achievement in terms of the ranking, the index of e-government development. Vietnam index for e-government development is at the high level, and the growth was the ranking has been improved by 2 ranks from 2018 to 2020. So Vietnam has been making progress, but we still see the need to be even stronger, quicker, to increase our ranking in terms of the e-government development index. You can see here. We're now at the average level of ASEAN. And also somehow at the average level, 0.66667. You can compare with the average figure of the world, 0.59, the average of Asia, 0.6373, and the average level of Southeast Asia, 0.6321. So Vietnam is now around in the average level of Southeast Asia, and we need to overcome, first of all, the Philippines. It is not easy, right? Because the higher we climb, the more efforts we need to take to further our ranking. We learn from other friends, and I think the workshop today is very important and useful, which will bring about to us a good way of thinking and approaches, so that we can see ourselves more clearly for the development in the upcoming period of 2021, 2025, and even to 2030, to advance with the world, not to be lagging behind. Thank you all for your attention. And I would like to listen from you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Liu Kim-san. Before we move
để anh làm tiếp.
let's hear from Dr.
Chúng ta sẽ
digital government development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you, everyone. I'm very pleasure to receive the invitation from NAPA for this very useful workshop on the way towards digital government development in Vietnam. So my presentation is focused on three main issues. The first one is very brief about the digital transformation movement in Vietnam. The second part is about some trend and current legal frameworks to support for digital transformation, and then I will talk about the enabling factors for digital transformation towards the digital government. So this slide shows you where we are, where is Vietnam standing in some ICT ranking. So we are doing okay, not good, not bad, but we are doing okay. But the first part is I don't say easy, but it's not too difficult to reach. But the second part, when you are low, you reach to the middle, and from the middle to reach to the good or excellent, this is more challenging, like Dr. Tan just mentioned. Next, please. And Vietnam is the country in middle income level. So we have to avoid, people say that middle income trap. So to do that, one strategy is Vietnam must go digital. That is very important to increase the productivity of the labor forces, to increase the national competitiveness, and also the human resource development for digital economies. So that is some issues we have to deal with. And one of the way is about the digital transformation will happen. So next, please. So next slide. So this is the framework of the Vietnam National Digital Transformation Program. We number is 749. So in this plan, we focus on three pillars: digital government, digital economy, and digital society development. So in this workshop, we focus on digital government, but it's always related to each other with others pillars like economy, like society. So we can see that some goals, some number that we have to reach until towards 2030. So it's not a long time, and we have to do a lot of work to reach that the goal. Next, please. And according to the program and according to the Ministry of Information Communication plan, so this digital transformation plan will be go through main phases, three main phases. From the first phase is to build the foundation for digital transformation. You can see that the legal framework, the digital infrastructure, human resources, reforming the organization from the state agency into a business and also society. And this is more important, very important, is make the foundation. Second one is to accelerate the digital transformation in Vietnam. So we should give more service, go on digital to help to boost the social economic fields. And the phase three, so towards 2030, so we would like to achieve comprehensive digital transformation. So the society, the economy, and even government. And the goals is like that. So we would like to be the top 4 ASEAN countries on digital transformation, and some indicator like top 4 in e-government index, 30% of the public service reform, and 20% of new service is data-driven service to provide to society. Next, please. And we can go back to some the current legal framework. Actually, this is we call it legal framework supporting for digital transformation. We don't have so far. We don't have the comprehensive legal framework only for digital transformation. But is quite wide range, like from the law of electronic transaction, commercial law, civil ID, IP law, information technology law, smart city development plan on information security and cyber security. That is also a very good legal foundation for us to develop the digital transformation policy and digital transformation program. So next, please. And then from that, so we would like to identify the factors for digital transformation development in Vietnam. So like we would like to achieve the digital economy, digital society, and digital government. So we have to change. So to do that, so very important is of course the legal framework is always to make that is the foundation for every activity on top of that. So building a comprehensive legal framework is that a need, a must for digital transformation. The second one is to develop the labor forces for digital age, retrain, reskill, upskill training. Another important is about digital infrastructure, including the technological infrastructure and so data infrastructure. And the very important thing is about the research and innovation. So last one will be, we point out that the factor is like this. So the first one, the legal framework should be in the place for the digital transformation. The second one, the digital infrastructure towards the cloud-based service, because this is important. We could not spend a lot of money on the data centers everywhere, every province, but we must have the policy to invest the data center in the region, not in every province. This is about the public investment. The third point is about the national data spicy. Like Dr. Tan mentioned that we also have the good databases, the good database system and other thing, but they are the silos. They are the silos. So the one of the effort to set up the data portal, have to share then the data set into the public, but that's also the challenge. The fourth point is about the digital literacy for people. So we have a lot of work on grid training from the public civil servant, even the people living in the urban area, and especially the people living in the rural areas. And then very important, that is synergy for initiative from government, from state agencies. Because we have the feeling that every ministry have their own plan and they don't want to work together. So that is the point. So that is we have some good movement from very top level of the government recently to how to coordinate that work. So this is very important factors that should have. So from one agency of the Ministry of Information and Communication, they also would like to have a law on digital transformation, but they also put there some principle like digital by design, like Oecd, open by default. It's good. Open data by default and related to open data. Once only, like one door policy, something like cyber security. That is principle they will follow. If we map into the OECD policy framework, it's quite matching, and they focus on the digital identities, personal data protection, data rights, and interoperability of the system. So that is the thing. There's some movement from state agency to set up the legal framework for digital transformation. We also have like I list here some law and some regulations already in the place. Not in place, but they on the plan to do, like law in DX, AI, ethics, very important. Huh? law, tax law, transportation law, law on digital bank and credit, and they also have plan to preview on the law on digital transformation before 2025, and they have some regulation. Here is this on the plan. They would like to set up the legal framework for digital transformation, like sandbox framework regulation, and that is good for us to move on. For the data, for digital infrastructure development, so the connection infrastructure with the technological. So 5G would be installed in the near future. Broadband, they would like to connect into the rural areas. Digital infrastructure, data infrastructure. This is very important. This is very important, data infrastructure. Currently, we don't have a common. COVID exposed a lot of problems. Like we have many apps for COVID, but the problem is not many apps. The problem is the data. Because many apps is okay, because I like this app, you like another app, it's fine. But the data, how to share, how to use the common data, that is more important. So like you have, I like Toyota, you like Honda, you like Hyundai. That doesn't depend on people. But the core problem is the data. How to share, how to reuse, how to reproduce. And that is related to these platforms. And another issue about information security. If we are doing this not good enough, so we will meet another problem of not only the gap from the wealthy and the poor, but from the urban and the rural areas. Another problem of what we call digital divide. We also should have the plan for digital workforce, like OECD already mentioned. Because in Vietnam, more than 65% population in rural areas. So we see some arithmetic calculation that we need about 30% upskill and reskill of people working in the rural areas. For public and civil servant, there's some statistics from Ministry of Information and Communication. 80% need to upskill and reskill. Why they're different? Because they need different skill, different capacity. Digital workforce in the college, in the university, in the institutes like us, digital professionals and digital elite. People have the PhD degrees, and we must have that people to develop the digital agenda for Vietnam. For the digital transformation public and state agency, we also have the resolution 17 of the government on the e-government development. And recently, we also have the strategy for e-government development towards digital government in period of 2021 and 2025 towards 2030. So that is also already good, because everything is now on the place. Now you start the planning and implementation, and how to do that. Up till now, we don't have, because our ministry in charge of this, but because of COVID, we have not yet seen any concrete plan for that. Okay. For society with the digital government, because when you develop the digital government services, it's always related to people, to society, because that is service you provide to the public, and with the user driven or user oriented, like you have just mentioned, that's very important. So the broadband should be reached to the households. People have the condition to equip the digital devices like smartphone, tab, everything. People should have the very basic digital skill, because if you have the good service on digital, but people don't have skill to use, that is waste, and that is very bad, especially people in rural areas and very remote areas. So we have to have the approach to bring the service to them. But for to do that, the training, retraining, and different way Other thing like the online payment, we need the common digital identity from every people, every person in the society. And then the quality of life should be improved, because if you have the good digital transformation, that must be reduce the gap between the people in urban area and the people in rural areas. Otherwise, we make another gap. Not about money, but about the digital divide. That is dangerous. So next, please. Another one is to make the digital transformation from the core. So we must have very good research and innovation and initiative from ministries. They must work together in one good coordination from top level of government. But very important, we should have the good R&D center, like AI center. They also have the plan to build in Hanoi, in Ho Chi Minh City, or even in Da Nang. So technology on AI, big data, IoT, and communication should be pushed there. The strengthening the collaboration between the institutes, university, and enterprise, and the public agencies. That is the point. So for the concluding, so we would like to do that. To do that, for legal framework, that is institutional, we must have open, data-driven, but synergy. Synergy is very important. I mean, people from different stakeholders, they have to work together. Second one, technology and innovation. That three parts have to serve one object, very important, that is people. So that is the concluding message I would like to share. Thank you very much. And I really welcome the discussion with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoa Hung Han, and also Dr. Liu Kim Than for your very enlightening messages on the Vietnamese context. So without further ado, may I invite Mr. Arturo from the OECD to provide a few comments.
Thank you, Ethel. Thank you very much to Dr. Tan and to Dr. Huang for their very interesting presentations. I think you grasp quite well the value, but also the complexity of what digital transformation implies, including within the public sector. I just would like to mention a couple of things that I think are really important, and some of them I will actually go back to a couple of points that you shared during your presentations. The first one, it's about how important it is to realize the world does not wait. And this was a key point that was raised in the presentation by Dr. Tan. It's not only about working in the digital transformation of the public sector, but I think it goes beyond. It's really being clear about why are we working on this, why governments are working on this. In that respect, I would like to say three things. It's about remaining relevant for the citizens, remaining relevant for the businesses, being relatable to them, okay, so that actually they relate to what the public sector is. And also really important is to keep things simple. I mean, if you ask me, in terms of digital government and public services, that is something that is really important. It's about really keeping things simple for the people. It's about working for the people and responding to their needs. And I think this came really clear in your presentations. The other thing that I would like to mention, it's about, how digital transformation is comprehensive. And we really would like to stress how important it is, the work that you are doing in Vietnam, to really show that the digital transformation is not about only the economy and it's not about the society by itself, but it's also about the digital government. Okay, building digital governments. This is fundamental so that digital transformation takes place in a comprehensive way. The other thing, a couple of things that I would like to mention, because I do know that we have limited time, is that The foundations are in place. I think from now on, the question is how can we make sure, how can you make sure that the work is implemented within the public sector, so that actually real value is delivered to the people. In terms of digital by design, I mean, the development of the government architecture, you know, and the way that how you stress that this was an enabler for the technology is fundamental. From a perspective of e-government, from the perspective of digital government, and here I would like to go back also to one of the points of Dr. Huang, you know, digital by design is about digital inclusion. Okay, it's really making sure that everyone is engaged, and then everyone in the country or around the globe has a possibility to actually engage through digital means with the government. And for this, and also go back to the point that was raised during the presentations, you know, building the skills among all members of the society, all population groups, will be fundamental. It is important, of course, to build digital governments, but efforts will not really be fully fruitful, you know, if at the end people cannot use the services. Okay, so I think it's this is how it's important also to mention digital by design. It's really fundamental to digital inclusion and to literacy and so on, which is quite in connection precisely to what Dr. Tan and Dr. Huang were presented in relation to the DX for society. The other point that I wanted to mention is that you have it really clear in terms of data-driven public sector. You know, I think I really welcome this. It might sound a little bit technical, you know, but how important it is to actually work on digital data registers. We are working still with countries across the OECD membership in terms of how to improve, you know, to transform, to move, you know, from data to digital data. And Dr. Huang, you mentioned quite well, you know, the core problem it always goes back to the data. Also, in terms of the Dr. Tan points of governance as a platform, openness and transparency, I think for us what the key message is that we would like to share with you is that digital government is open and it's collaborative. Okay, it's impossible to transform the public sector only working within the public sector. And for this, I would like to ask a couple of questions to you, just food for thought. You know, it's not to be answered right now, but this is food for thought for everyone joining the session right now. And I think actually some of these points were also raised in the presentation, is that you have it clear in terms of you need to build the skills within the public sector to make the digital transformation happen. But what will be the role of external actors, such as those from the GovTech community, in actually helping the digital transformation within the public sector happen? I think this is good to actually try also to, for instance, to explore how external capacities can help to actually fill the gaps that are present within the public sectors. What are the controls that you need to put in place to ensure coherent implementation within the public sector? This is a question that we need to ask. Regulations are important, are fundamental to actually strengthen the governance for a digital government. Implementation of those regulations is where the real challenge is. And it's even more challenging to ensure that the implementation takes way in a coherent way. This is why, as part of the presentation that, for instance, Barbara was given earlier, we stressed the importance of financial management. How can you use, for instance, financial levers to actually enforce that transformation, to ensure, for instance, that a service owner, you know, which is within a specific public sector organization, adheres to specific standards for digital services or data. Okay, these policy levers are going to be really important in ensuring the coherent implementation of all these regulations. And also really important, and if you ask me, digital government is also about the people, and it's how can you make officials to work together and share knowledge. It's fundamental to have formal bodies for collaboration and coordination and so on, also going back to my previous point of coherent implementation. But how can you actually make sure people really work together? to really collaborate, to really avoid duplicating what someone in one other public sector organization is already doing? How can you enable this exchange of knowledge? This is why this type of events, the ones that we are, the one that we are organizing today, with the KPC and with NAPA, is important, because it's enabled to share this knowledge, but it's also to share knowledge in a day-to-day basis. Okay, and this is why also digital channels can help in this regard. But the last point that I would like to make is that in terms of the importance of indexes and measurement instruments and so on, I would like to reiterate the point that Barbara mentioned this morning, and also the point that we mentioned this morning. We are here ready to support the Vietnamese government, NAPA, and so on, in really building further capacities. And for this, we could make use actually the policy instruments that we have. We have the Digital Government Policy Index, which might be different in terms of the scope of other indexes, because we really look forward, we really look forward in terms of what being digitally mature means for a public sector. And this also touches upon our data index, which is our measurement instrument for open data. We do believe on the OECD side that there is for sure potential for collaboration between the Vietnamese government and the OECD in this regard. Thank you very much for the presentations. They were really interesting, and I am sure that there will be opportunities for future collaboration between the OECD, NAPA, and the Vietnamese government in the future. Thank you, Adele.
Thank you very much, Arturo. Now we will transition to a more interactive session where participants have the opportunity to pose questions during a Q&A section after the 3 presentations that we have by the international peers. First up, we have Mr. Sung-Ju Sun, Director of the Digital Government Cooperation Division in the Ministry of Interior and Safety in Korea, followed by Mr. Mark Levine, Lead for Digital Government Partnerships in the Digital Change Sector Office of the Chief Information Officer and the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. And finally, from Colombia, we have Ms. Lina Marcela Morales in the Capacity Building and Digital Transformation Team, Subdirectorate for Strengthening Digital Public Capacities in the Directorate for Digital Government of the Ministry of Information and Technologies and Communications. Each of these 3 peers will be presenting for 10 minutes, followed by a short 5-minute Q&A interactive session with the participants. So without further ado, may I invite Mrs. Sung-Ju Son to take the floor.
Thank you. So about my presentation, who's the operation? Oh, thank you. Thank you. So hello everyone, my name is Sung-Ju Son. I'm Director of Digital Government Cooperation Division of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety of the Republic of Korea. So today I would like to present to you digital government innovation of Korea. Okay, so these are what we're going through today. And next slide, please. Let me start with a brief introduction of the Korean digital government. So, we have 16,000 information system in public sector and spend 4.7 billion US dollars per year for digital government in Korea. And in Korea, 37 million people use digital government services, and 98% of them are satisfied with the service they use. Next slide, please. It has been more than 50 years since the beginning of digital government of Korea. Since the enactment of E-Government Act in 2001, which triggered the nationwide scale e-government project with top political priority, we have constructed one of the most sophisticated digital government in the world. Now we are developing the vision of intelligent digital government with the help of emerging technologies. Next slide, please. This slide shows that we have taken many steps to create our digital government. And nowadays, we are focusing on providing high-quality citizen-centered services with the collaboration between the public sector and the private sector. Next slide, please. This slide shows an overview of major government services in Korea. And Various services for citizens and businesses are provided to implement service-oriented, effective, efficient, and transparent open government. And furthermore, all the ministries use the same systems for common administrative services, such as digital document management, digital budget accounting, and personnel management. Some services, such as e-customs and e-procurement, are adopted by other countries as well. So next slide, please. So if you need more information, I recommend to visit dgovkorea.kr, an introduction website of Korea's digital government. Currently, it has 29 best practices and more will be added in the future. And next slide, please. This slide shows Korea's result of OECD Digital Government Index for each of the 6 dimensions of the OECD Digital Government Policy Framework. The result shows that we need to improve our proactiveness and user-driven approaches more than other 4 dimensions. We considered OECD's assessment and suggestions to establish our new master plan for digital government, which I will explain more in the next chapter. This slide shows Korea's result of OECD's OUO Data Index. OECD advices and assessments regarding open data help the Korean government to review and develop its data policies in a more systematic way. Next slide, please. So in June 2021, our Minister of Interior and Safety announced the Digital Government Master Plan 2025. Next slide, please. So, previous slide, please. So to use digital technologies as the door to a better world, this plan includes 3 types of missions. The first one is implementing intelligent public services. And the second one is facilitating data-based government. The last one is strengthening foundation of digital transformation. Next slide, please. So for the first mission, Korean government is currently developing a virtual assistant service, which provides a Korean language-based platform, which can be merged with the chatbot solutions and voice assistant services to deliver public services and relevant information to citizens. We also have started My Data platform services and also mobile ID services for user-friendly authentication. And most of all, we will innovate service process and systems for proactive service notification and integrated one-stop application. Next slide, please. So for the second mission of facilitating data-based government, Korean government is going to set up government data analysis centers. And the pan-government level integrated data analysis center will support and cooperate with the sectoral data analysis centers of ministries and regional centers of local governments. And data analysis projects for policy making about important national issues will be launched by these centers. So beside analysis projects, using various data, including real-time data streams from IoT sensors for rapid disaster prevention and response, and it would be the center of the constant task of Korean government. Next slide, please. So solid non-technical foundation is essential for continuous and sustainable digital transformation. The more digital transformation progresses, the more risk of digital divide and exclusion increases. So we have put a high priority on service design for digital inclusion and promoting digital literacy of vulnerable groups. Last but not least, international cooperation will help us to share and discuss agendas and issues with other countries and collaborate for the better solutions. In the last chapter, I would like to present to you Korea's ongoing and future digital innovation policy and project from the viewpoint of OECD Digital Government Policy Framework. So regarding digital by design, Korean government has embedded digital in policy life cycles by using digital participation platforms. And we are also trying to continuously update our standards and guidelines to improve digital skills of government officials. Recently, private-public collaboration has become more important than before because of COVID-19. Various new services launched in a very short time with a collaboration between the government and the private sector companies. Most of all, we are trying to innovate public service delivery in a more inclusive way by providing personalized omni-channel services. So regarding data-driven public sector, Korean government is now implementing many policies and projects in accordance with OECD Digital Government Policy Framework. So the Act on Promotion of Data-Based Automation was enacted in December 2020, and now all government entities in Korea have legal obligation to produce and use data for more efficient administration. And the Korean government is strengthening Korea's public data governance with the pan-government standards, platforms, and continuous data quality management. Other activities to build trust among people and nurture the ecosystem are in progress as well. Next slide, please. So for governance platform, Korean government has developed many pan-government platform standards and prepare systems and projects to ensure iterative activities of government entities. In the future, we'll expand the collaborative ecosystem with more sophisticated toolkits and guidelines. For example, we are developing the next version of data interoperability guidelines, the national master data, national data catalog, and standard data sets. Next step, please. So Open by Default is already in action in Korea. So we open 50,000 data sets and 7,000 open APIs, and the number is keep increasing every year. We also open all government official documents, as many as possible. Almost 2 billion documents are open to the public already. Next slide, please. So user-driven approach is an area that Korean government needs to improve. We have diverse platforms and services for participation of citizens, and citizens are eager to participate in policymaking and implementation processes. However, user research-based user experience improvement has just begun in Korea, and skills of government officials for that need to be developed as well. Next slide, please. The last, according to recent Oecd Government Index, Korea's proactiveness is another area that needs to be improved. In accordance with OECD's Digital Government Index, many projects and policies are in progress and ready to go for better proactiveness. For example, data analytics will be used for proactive policy making, and real-time interactive communication between citizen and government will be implemented. Proactive notification of eligible services and one-stop application will be implemented as well in the future. AI will be the key technology to realize these innovations. Next slide, please. So this is all I have today. Thank you for your attention, and I expecting more questions about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sung-Ju-son. So if anyone has any questions right now, please feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Perhaps seeing as there are none, let's quickly move on to the next presentation. So thank you, Mr. Sung-Ju-son. I'd like to just also thank Mr. Mark Levine and Ms. Lina Marcela Morales for connecting at this early hour in Canada and Colombia. We very much appreciate your presence with us, and we look forward to your presentation. So Mr. Mark Levine, please have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It is very early in Canada. It's about 5 a.m. But I'm happy to be here nonetheless. Let me share my screen here. So my cat is also very excited to be here with you as well. So I apologize if you hear him in the background. So let me just run through this quick presentation. So I wanted to give you a bit of background about who we are and what we do. So Canada, as you know, is a vast geographic country. I've just returned from visiting family in our province of British Columbia, which is in the Pacific side of our country. That's the distance from Hanoi to Tokyo. So it's a vast geographical country. And then we have another 2,700 kilometers east of where I am in central Canada to our Atlantic side. So it's a huge challenge to deliver digital products and services to Canadians from east to west and then from north to south. We have a split federal government, and so the national government delivers certain programs, but each of the 10 provinces and 3 territories are also responsible for delivering programs as well, including health and transportation. And so that split nature does cause some tension and some problems. Within the federal government, we have over 200 different departments and agencies. And so our department, the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, is responsible for developing the administrative policy for the government of Canada as it relates to what we used to call information management and information technology, but now we refer more as digital government. We do work very closely with those provinces and territories, and we're the co-chair of 2 different councils that do that work. Over the last decade or so, we've had a number of challenges and opportunities, and a lot of this was highlighted especially during the response and recovery to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so on the challenges side, procurement is very, very difficult in the digital government space in Canada. It has been for a long time, and we're working to come up with more agile approaches to procurement. But right now, procurement is long, costly, and overly complicated. We also have a very old project management regime in the government of Canada. We're trying to move to more a product delivery that you would see in a digital space, and that's a slow project. And then governance, as I mentioned, we have many departments and across, and that makes governance and everybody being on the same page a very big challenge. And then the final big challenge I wanted to mention is technical debt. And we find in a lot of government departments and agencies, there's a build once and forget attitude, where we get a shiny new digital system with lots of investment. It gets launched, it gets deployed, and then it's not serviced over its lifetime. And that introduces a tremendous amount of what's called technical debt. And then to actually remodernize or revalue that program takes considerable time, effort, and money. And so those are some of the big challenges we have. But that also leads to sort of a series of opportunities and where we're putting our focus in the government of Canada. And so one is on modernizing technology, so reducing technical debt and building technology that's future-proof as much as you can in the digital space. The second is a complete focus on improving our digital products and services. We also want to overhaul some of our institutional barriers. This goes back to governance and procurement as well. And finally, as many of the panelists today have already mentioned, it's all about building digital skills, recruiting, retaining, and promoting those public servants who have digital skills. And that's a really key part of all the work that we're doing. So we do have a digital vision for the government of Canada that we developed last year, and it's to be an open and service-oriented organization that operates and delivers programs and services to people in business in a simple, modern, and effective ways that are optimized for digital and are available anytime, anywhere, and from any device. And to support this vision, we have a digital operations strategic plan, very similar to the emphases that the government of Korea is putting in, and also, as we heard earlier, from the government of Vietnam. We have 4 main pillars of our strategic plan, and these will come back to the challenges and opportunities that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. The first is to modernize legacy IT systems. We still have legacy systems from the 1960s and the 1970s in place that deliver our benefits, whether it's pensions or employment insurance. And those are running on ancient and antiquated computer systems, and we have made investments to improve those. The second is, as I mentioned, a focus to improve services so that individuals and businesses are satisfied and trust Government of Canada services, and that they are reliable, secure, timely, accessible, and easy to use from any device. The third is what we call implementing enterprise. So it's taking a government as a whole, government as a platform approach to make sure that public servants are happier with their technology and more productive, that departments make better data-driven decisions, that our government operations are more effective and efficient, and that costs are lower and we reduce duplication across the organization. And finally, the fourth is the people and the culture, and that's transforming the institution so that our Government of Canada public service are digitally enabled through cultural and operational shifts, and work on modern, diverse, and multidisciplinary teams to better serve the public. The Digital Operations Strategic Plan is backed by a set of digital standards. We know that many countries, many of the OECD member countries have sets of digital standards, and we are rapidly and continuously iterating ours. That's designing with users, working in the open by default. I'm sure that you've seen many different examples of these, and we're working on the behaviors that support these digital standards, because we feel that enabling public servants with these tools will help them produce better work and ultimately deliver better programs and services to Canadians. So we witnessed, as many others did, a digital acceleration during COVID. As Canadians rapidly went from working in offices to working from home, and many of us are still working from home, it was a huge challenge to make sure that we were delivering the programs and services that Canadians needed online. We thought that this would be a fairly straightforward task, but it wasn't, and it brought many complications, and many people worked very hard in the last 18 months to do that. A big part of this, and this was mentioned in a presentation about an hour ago, is moving to the cloud. We have a cloud first strategy within the Government of Canada, away from costly and environmentally costly data centers, moving programs and services delivery to the cloud. We have a big focus on that. And finally, as I said, continuing to support government employees to work from home. So we have almost 290,000 employees in the Government of Canada. That requires dedicated VPN space, dedicated mobile devices. It's a big piece of work, and it was really a point of emphasis during the pandemic. I just wanted to highlight a couple of tools that we're working on, because these sort of support a lot of the things that we've been talking about today so far. We're working in the open, using open source tool, borrowing from others. So we have a Notify app, which is a simple way for the government to send email and text notifications to Canadians, and a key tool in the fight against COVID. We borrowed the open source software to do Notify from the government of the United Kingdom. We've continued to develop it for the Canadian context, but rather than just start from scratch, we're really relying on open source tools and on collaborations with our international peers. Many of them are going through the same struggles and challenges that we face, and rather than doing that in a silo, we're actively trying to work with our international peers, learning from them, sharing what we've learned with them, and also sharing software as well. And that's the end of my very short presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mark. So due to time constraints, may I invite the participants to just put your questions in the chat, and as and when we can take them perhaps at the end of this session with the peers sharing. So do that if you'd like to ask Mark or Songju Son any questions. And finally, we have from Colombia, Ms. Lina Marcela Morales to share with her experiences for Colombia. Please have the floor.
Hi, good morning. Thank you to everyone for being here with us today. My name is Marcela Morales. I lead the Digital Government Transformation Strategy at the Ministry of ICT in Colombia. I'm really honored to have allowed me to present the Colombian experience, specifically in digital government talent and skills. The constant evolution of electronic government in Colombia has clarified ICT importance to improve public agencies' management and services provided by the state to citizens and stakeholders. However, nowadays, with this post-pandemic situation, a new reality is arising. Digital government is not only helping us improving existing public processes and services, but also allows this digital transformation in the state. In this sense, our digital government policy becomes an engine for state digital transformation, allowing public institutions to be more efficient, satisfy citizens' needs and problems, and convert citizens as a change heroes through digital technologies, use, and appropriation. In this new context, the Colombian digital government policy defines guidelines, standards, and strategic projects aiming at ICT use and appropriation to consolidate a government with competitive, proactive, and innovative public institutions that generate public value in a digital trusting environment. The policy scope covers all public institutions nationwide in Colombia. The digital government policy is comprised of two main components, ICT for government and ICT for society, and it has three transversal enablers: architecture, security and privacy, and digital citizen services. These components defines standards and guidelines for achieving 5 purposes: reliable and high quality digital services, secure and efficient internal processes based on IT management capabilities, data-driven decision-making, citizen empowerment through an open state consolidation, and foster smart cities and territories. The first component, ICT for government, ICT for government seeks to improve public institutions' performance and interaction with other public institutions through ICT use. Likewise, it aims at strengthening public servants' information technologies competences as an institutional capacity fundamental part. The second component, ICT for society, seeks to empower society and its engagement with the state in the digital field so that it is reliable, allows public data opening and use, facilitates collaboration for public services development and value generation, promotes citizens' participation in policy and regulation design, and supports solution identification for common interest problems. The first transversal enabler, architecture, establishes an architecture framework that attempts to strengthen institutional and information technologies management capacities, applying guidelines, standards, and best practices in the domains of IT strategy, IT government, information systems, technological infrastructure, security and privacy, and use and appropriation. The second transversal enabler is security and privacy. This defines a security and privacy model that guides information security management and implementation in the state, aiming at public institutions to incorporate information security in all their processes, procedures, services, information systems, infrastructure, and in general in all information assets to preserve data confidentiality, integrity, availability, and privacy. The last one is digital citizen services. This provides the state with the ability to digitally transform itself and achieve adequate interaction with citizens. The fundamental services here are interoperability, digital authentication, and digital citizen folder. Interoperability allows information exchange between public institutions. Digital authentication allows digital identity validation, and the digital citizen folder is like a Dropbox website that allows citizens to access data that public institutions have collected from them. To monitor this digital government policy, the Colombian government has established the Digital Government Index, which measures public institutions' performance in digital government. The index allows to measure and compare digital government performance, identify strengths and weaknesses in certain digitization areas, focus attention and efforts on those elements where improvement is needed, and support investment decision-making. Once the public institutions knows its digital government index result, reviews ICT ministry recommendations, and identifies improvement aspects to achieve digital government policy implementation, it can be part of our capacity building strategy. In the context of digital government talent and skills, the ICT ministry created the capacity building strategy, which aims at supporting the digital government policy implementation with communication, support, and strengthening. Firstly, we communicate the digital government policy elements. Second, we support and guide public institutions to implement those elements. And finally, we strengthen GCIOs and IT team members' capabilities for better digital government policy use and appropriation. In a post-pandemic hybrid context, this strategy incorporates mainly virtual-oriented initiatives, and some of them also include physical interactions when possible. Now I'm going to present the most relevant initiatives that are part of this strategy. The main communication initiative is called Digital Transformation Talks. This initiative consists of live sessions for training GCIOs and IT team members in digital government policy fundamentals. As an incentive, participants are certified with 80% of attendance. This year, we have launched 18 lives with about 7,000 participants using Facebook Live and YouTube Live sessions. The first main support initiative is called Digital Government Transformation, which I lead. This initiative consists of live sessions, gamification strategies, and a toolbox for self-training and self-management. This year, we have launched 12 lives, nearly with 7,000 participants and nearly 70,000 interactions with all the strategy. Within this strategy, workshops are practical and interactive live sessions using for supporting GCIOs and IT teams in building specific digital government policy elements. During these sessions, participants generate specific artifacts, ask questions, share their experience, and submit their artifacts for feedback. The image here shows an open data visualization workshop in which participants created and shared a dashboard powered by public data. Stories are similar to workshops. They are live sessions, but for government representatives to share their experience in digital government policy adoption. During these sessions, the speakers share their real-life experiences, and participants can interact with them and learn through success stories. Co-creations are also live sessions in which GCIOs and IT team members help apps, help ICT ministry strengthen the digital government policy. During the sessions, participants review specific digital government policy elements and provide us feedback and recommendations. The image shows a co-creation session using Mural, which we are going to use later, in which participants provided feedback on our architecture framework standards. We also incorporate gamification strategies for supporting live workshops and stories. With gamification, participants complement their training through fun games that allow them to review digital government policy concepts. This image shows a game used to help GCIOs and team members to practice information security concepts. In addition to live sessions and gamification, the Digital Government Transformation Initiative also incorporates a toolbox which facilitates GCIOs and IT team members to self-training and self-management for digital government policy implementation. This toolbox contains free online self-paced courses, templates, and step-by-step videos to better customize those templates that are base documents for implementing the digital policy, the digital government policy elements. The second main support initiative is called Max Velocity. With this initiative, public institutions compete in solving strategic challenges that allow them to advance in compliance with the digital government policy. It defines three formulas. Formula 1 for those public institutions with the higher digital government index results, Formula 2 for those with intermediate results, and Formula 3 for those with lower results. This year, 444 public institutions have participated, and the image shows the public institutions that are winning each of the formulas. The first main strengthening initiative is called training programs. Within this initiative, ICT Ministry offers free online training programs for enforcing IT and management capabilities in GCIOs and ITT members. These programs originate from synergies with educational institutions. This year, we have virtually trained more than 8,000 public servants in digital government topics, including open data, smart cities and territories, digital transformation, IT strategic planning, information security and privacy, enterprise architecture, and citizens' digital services. The second main strengthening initiative is called GCIO Network and Summit. The GCIO network is a virtual space for integration and interaction between GCIOs, ICT Ministry members, presidency members, and other relevant actors related to digital government transformation. The GCIO Summit is a physical space to bring together national-wide GCIOs. At the summit, participants can join conferences, workshops, networking sessions, and collaboration activities. This hybrid space seeks joint solutions to main public problems related to technology access and use. And this space promotes knowledge and experience sharing between members, between those GCIOs. During this implementation, we faced multiple challenges. First, with the post-pandemic situation, we think it is necessary to incorporate remote and hybrid work and learning, focusing on self-oriented training. These self-paced courses, these videos that they can see by themselves, have helped us to really promote the implementation of digital government policy. Second, seeking to increase training success possibilities, it is essential to generate digital culture and create a digital transformation mindset in citizens and digital government stakeholders, not only citizens, but also enterprises, non-governmental organizations, and so on. Third, traditional training schemes do not work in a hybrid and changing environment. We need to focus on experimentation and innovation for policy training and appropriation. Fourth, it is important to promote collaboration and co-working between digital government stakeholders and generate digital transformation partnerships to solve public problems. And finally, it is key to measure the strategy's impact continuously and ask participants for feedback to continue strengthening digital talent and skill strategies. As I saw in the Vietnam strategy, I think you've advanced a lot in defining this framework for digital government and digital transformation. And now the challenge is how can we help our citizens, our stakeholders to appropriate coherently this framework. And I think maybe these strategies can help your government to better help citizens and stakeholders to appropriate your digital transformation and digital policy. Now we're going to start a virtual exercise using the collaborative tool called Mural. You just need to go to this link. I'm going to copy this in Zoom. And you can add sticky notes with your questions or comments regarding the Colombian presentation. You can also include the opportunities you identified for the government of Vietnam, and I will respond as soon as I can. Here is 5 a.m., so maybe I will answer those questions later. Thank you to everyone for attending this presentation. Thanks to OECD, Athel, and all the team behind the program for organizing these sessions and allowing us to share our experience and learn from yours. And if you have any questions or would like to collaborate on digital skills and talent strategies, don't hesitate to write to me. These are my contact details. Thank you.
Many, many thanks, Marcela, Mark, and Sungju for your very interesting and innovative experiences that you have on digital government development. So as said, there are opportunities to interact with the speakers, either through the mural board or through Zoom or via email. So do not hesitate to get in touch with them or via the OECD if you'd like to take this further. So in the interest of time, as we are running late, we would like to call an end to the capacity building program. And we have like to invite Ms. Barbara Ubaldi to have her her closing remarks. Apologies, her closing remarks. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ethel, and thank you, everyone. You may recall me from earlier on this morning. I really think the participation from the Vietnamese authorities in sharing the great advancements that have been made in Vietnam, and that you saw echoed some of the comments and experiences shared by the peers from Canada, Colombia, and Korea. This to say that I really think the most important thing to notice at the end of this capacity building workshop is to see to what extent Vietnam is in the right direction. Many of the actions that are being taken at the moment to make sure that you build on the strong basis that you had in place for higher digital government maturity are actions that mirror and are very similar to the actions taken by the more advanced countries when it comes to digital government. And I really think that you're trying to make the most of the challenges and opportunities also provided by the COVID-19 pandemic. So building on the policy and legal basis for digital transformation that you had, and your strong focus in trying to make sure that you remain capable to serve citizens and secure day-to-day operations are some of the, let's say, demonstrations that you've shown in the past 18 months to demonstrate that you really want to advance digital transformation for delivering better results and increase public trust. So in particular, I think that the emphasis that the government of Vietnam has placed on the governance for digital government is to be commended. First of all, I really think that the moment is the right moment to be even more ambitious and to build on the momentum that the pandemic has created and the good developments that you've made in the context of the pandemic. For example, the comprehensive and holistic approach to digital transformation through the e-government development strategy towards digital government is really a golden opportunity to make sure that you continue advance, delivering high quality public services, broadening the public engagement, and strengthening the capacities of agency to maintain operations which deliver social and economic impact. For example, you should continue in the right path of improving the legal environment, developing cloud-first digital infrastructure, developing digital platforms and systems, focusing on data and the basis for using data as a key strategic asset, developing national applications and services, and not forgetting security and safety of national networks. These are all priority actions that you envisage as part of your strategy, for which we would like to say that we commend your vision, your ambition, and the very strategic set of, let's say, path that you've prepared for your next steps. This is a very important initiative that is part of the broader work that we've done with the KPC, the OECD Korean Policy Center, to build capacities in the region for advancing the digital government maturity. It's very important to remember that this can open up future opportunities to keep working together and to keep assisting you in the work you're doing on digital government, also through the OECD network on open and innovative government in Southeast Asia. The next meeting will take place between the end of 2021 and beginning of 2022. That's a key opportunity to keep exchanging knowledge and practices between countries in the region, but also between Southeast Asian countries and OECD member countries. And this is also core of our Global Leaders Initiative. So the idea is, let's make this like a recurrent opportunity for us to help you out. So we really look forward to keep helping you. We mentioned a number of policy frameworks that you are already using to guide your decisions. The Digital Government Index and the Open Data Index are the measurement tools that the OECD produces to support actions, policy actions, to help you see how you're progressing and perhaps identify gaps that you can still work on to make sure that you advance. So we will be very happy to keep working with you also eventually through your participation in these measurement exercises that are a very nice complement to policy actions and capacity building. Without our speakers, and in particular without our peers from OECD countries that showed their commitment in a couple of cases like Canada and Colombia, considering the time difference, and Korea that we can always count on to make sure that we learn on the latest developments on digital government. And thanks to the speaker from Vietnam, I really think that this conversation has helped putting some, let's say, concrete flavor to the more general introductory presentations that we provided from the OECD to share a little bit our knowledge. I really would like to thank, therefore, all the participants, all the speakers, Sungju, Mark, and Sangjo, Mark, and Marcela for the contribution, the colleagues from the OECD Korean Policy Center, the colleague from NAPA and their teams for making the capacity building program possible, and also my team that has been working to the organization of this meeting with the usual commitment and passion. So we really would have liked much more to be in Vietnam. The COVID-19 still represents a challenge, but also has provided an opportunity for us to keep working together despite the fact that we cannot travel. So we really look forward to keep supporting the government of Vietnam and to keep working with you towards a higher digital maturity of your government. So we really thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and we will remain in touch. And the floor is back to you, Ethel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Barbara. Now, I have the pleasure to pass the floor to the OECD Korea Policy Center, Ms. Youngju Che. I'm sorry, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you very much for your participation. I'm Youngju Che, Director of the Public Governance Program. Before delivering my remarks, I'd like to let you know that Director General Ms. Lee was not able to be with us today due to unexpected interim matters that should be taken care of. She sent her apologies for not being able to join us. I hope for your generous understanding on this. First and foremost, I'd like to express my appreciation to the speakers and participants for their valuable contribution to our 2021 edition of Capacity Building Program, jointly hosted by OECD KPC and OECD in partnership with National Academy of Public Administration, Vietnam. My deepest gratitude goes to all who attended this capacity building program and helped to make it such a successful event. I would like to convey my special thanks to Canada and Colombia, since they were almost up all night and are now greeting the morning. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the Public Governance Program of OECD Korean Policy Center not only provides useful programs for the cultivation of talented public officials, but also plays an important role in helping develop efficient public governance policies in each country. Hearing and learning from speakers as well as the participants has educated me and all of us here on how the digital government can help developing and developed countries alike to promote better lives of the people. I'm certain that the takeaways from this workshop will further deepen our thinking and stimulate our work for the future. Before ending my closing remarks, I'd like to give a special thanks to the interpreters who have been extremely cooperative in staying with us the whole time. It's been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Youngju Che. And last but not least, I have also the pleasure of welcoming Dr. Nguyen Dan Quay to close the capacity building program of 2021. Please, the floor is yours.
Kính thưa các quý vị đại biểu khách quý,
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear scientists, today we have had a very significant international workshop, which is highly valuable after the concentrated spirit of working session. The International Workshop, Public Governance of Digital Transformation, Digital Government Policy, International Experiences and Implication for Digital Government of Vietnam has reached the expected outcome. We have been listening to the experts from OECD for the policy, the principles of the development of digital government, and also with the 6 dimensions and the applicability in Vietnam. And we're aware that to realize a digital mature government, there should be the participation of all of the stakeholders and ministries. It is necessary to change the kind of the working method and also the culture of the institution, making full of the combination between learning and practice. The public governance of digital transformation also need to take into consideration the use of the policy levers and with the data-driven for the designing and also to have the working for the citizen, enhancement of the capacity and bringing into full play the talent and skills to develop the digitally mature government, and also to overcome the challenges and to devise solutions to overcome. We have also listened to the Vietnamese representatives to share with us about the practical results in Vietnam, the opportunities and challenges, and also the applicability of foreign and international experiences to meet the demand for international integration of the country. Given the presentation by the Korean speakers, we have heard about the achievement that the Republic of Korea has made, as well as the overall master plan to the upcoming future. The renovation which has been taking place in the Republic of Korea, and also the digital government framework has been quite beneficial to us. We also thank the representative from Canada with their presentation of the good practices of the country, especially with other experiences in the application of the COVID pandemic context, with the example from Colombia, with the measurement of digital government for the sectors and ministries. They have all provided the useful lessons of Vietnam, and we have been finding them quite helpful in our course of development for the next 5 years and the orientation till the end of this decade. The NAPA look forward to the cooperation with the OECD Korea Policy Center, the agency under OECD in general, and the friends from Korea, Canada, and Colombia, and other countries, especially in the development of the capacity, planning, implementing of digital government. We'd like to express our appreciation the speakers for their presentations in the workshop. Madam Elsa Pilikovsky, Dr. Hong Taek Chen, Madam Barbara Urbandi, Mr. Jacob Arturo Rivera Perez, Mr. Lưu Kiếm Thanh, Mr. Hoàng Hữu Hạnh, Mr. Song Chu Son, Mr. Mark Levene, Madam Lina Marcela Moreno, Madam Hyun Chong Lee. We have received many other presentations, but due to the time constraint, we cannot have all of them be presented. Thank you so much indeed for the support which you have rendered and will continue rendering in the future for Vietnam. Thank you all the delegates, the participants, and the speakers. We wish you all good health, safety to overcome the pandemic, happiness, and success. Thank you.
Thank you very very much, Dr. Nguyen Dan Quay, on ending this on a positive note. So to wrap it up, we have one last opportunity to take a photo, which NAPA would like to have. So may I invite everyone to switch on your cameras and give a big smile. Napa, would you like to make the cue for the photo taking?
Một, hai, ba.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, I think it seems that we're done. Well, thank you to all participants and speakers for staying with us until the end, even though we were a little long on time. So once again, thank you for joining us in the capacity building program jointly organized by the OECD and the OECD Korea Policy Center in collaboration with the NAPA of Vietnam. I wish you all a wonderful evening ahead and see you all soon. Thank you.